Hello everyone and welcome to the Lotus Cafe. We decided to give you a little bonus episode tonight. We're going to be making a calzone, but it's not any calzone. It's a pork rind crusted calzone. That's right. Instead of a traditional dough, we are going to use a pork rind crust that I found in Anna Vicino's Eat Happy Italian cookbook. And we love Anna Vicino here. She is the co-host of Fitness Confidential with Vinnie Tortorich. She's also an accomplished chef and author of not only Eat Happy Italian, but also Eat Happy and Eat Happy 2. They are some wonderful cookbooks that she's put out, and they help you to eat clean and low carb with little to no sugar. Just what we're about here at the Lotus Cafe. So we're going to start by making the crust. We're going to take our bowl. We're going to put 1.5 cups of shredded mozzarella. Now, I will tell you, I shred my own mozzarella. I recommend it. Don't get the stuff in the store that's pre-shredded because it has cornstarch and things you really don't want to put in your body. And I know you love my measuring bowls, as do I. Amazon.com, baby. So the other thing we're going to put in here to start is going to be our cream cheese. Now, the cream cheese is 3 tablespoons, lovingly measured out. And we're just going to put these in the bowl, and then we're going to throw it in the microwave to soften it up. Okay, so we just pulled our mozzarella and cream cheese out of the microwave. We did that for 45 seconds to get it nice and softened up. I may have done it just a little bit too much because, again, this is a fresh whole milk mozzarella that I'm using. So I'm just going to kind of manipulate that together a little bit. And then we are going to add to this, we're going to add 1 cup of crushed pork rinds, 1 egg. I'm actually going to crack it into the bowl. That way, in case I get a shell, it doesn't get in our crust here. All right, now we're going to add our 1/2 teaspoon of basil and our 1/2 teaspoon of oregano. And we're just gonna mix that together. Okay, so we also added in a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder into our mix. And now we're just going to mash it up nicely. I'm actually gonna get my hands involved in this because I prefer to mix with my hands. I think utensils are absolutely too modern. I'm an old-fashioned gal. Okay, so I'm just going to get my hand in here and mix this dough up nice and well because I like a really well mixed dough. And it will seem a little wet, but that's by design, not to worry. But I assure you, when you taste this, oh my gosh, it is so good. Okay, so now that we've got our dough formed into a nice ball, we're going to take that ball and have our pizza stone underneath our parchment paper. We're going to place the ball of dough on the center. We're going to begin to push outward, making a nice, even, thin, not too thin, but thin enough crust so that we can make our calzone. Okay, so as you can see, I've taken a piece of parchment paper and I've smoothed out my crust the rest of the way. And I've tucked it around just a nice circle. So we're just going to peel that off. Okay, wonderful. Now we have this great crust for our calzone. And we are going to take our pizza stone frame here. We're just going to lift our pizza stone onto it. Our pizza stone is slightly warm because of the fact that it's been on the oven warming. So we're just going to kind of get that on there and get it started. Yeah, it's all tippy right now. Let's see if I can do this. Slide this over and there we go. It doesn't always like to sit in its frame the way I want it to. There we are. Nice and secure. Fabulous. Let me twist my crust around here so that it sits the way I want it to. And not up on the handles. I'm actually going to take and kind of cut. I wouldn't usually do this, but because of what I'm doing, I'm going to cut my parchment paper slightly, and that way I can just kind of offer it a recess to haphazardly crunch around the handles here. I'm trying to keep my crust as flat as possible here. Okay, so now we're just going to pop this in the oven real quick. We've got our 400-degree oven. I'm just going to throw it in there. Nest it in there for 8 to 10 minutes. So we're going to put a timer on for 10 minutes. Okay, so the timer just went off for 10 minutes, and we're going to take a look at the crust. Ooh, those pretty matzo bubbles. Yes. All right, so we're going to pull it out and let you see how it looks here. Looks quite lovely. Smells amazing. So we're going to grab our little pot holders here and get a hold of the rack handles just under that parchment. Pull it out. Yeah, I gave it a little foot kick. There we go. Now, I'm going to take a piece of parchment paper, lay it over it, and flip it over. Okay, so I've got my parchment paper. I've crumpled it because that's the way you keep it from, rolling back up on you, is you crumple the parchment paper. So I have a large spatula here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take I'm going to take one pot holder, and I'm going to hold the pizza stone with one hand, pick up the paper here because I need both the papers. This ought to be fun. This is where our spatula comes in. Because take the paper, put it over it. You hold the pizza stone frame, and then you take the paper, kind of slide it over there. And we're going to move the pizza stone over. And since we know it's free, well, now what we're going to do, and this is where the spatula comes in for me. So we're going to take this and we're just going to flip it over. And as Julia Child would say, just commit. And I obviously didn't commit, but that's okay because we got it flipped nonetheless. We can adjust it on the new parchment paper, same length as the other one. So we're just going to peel that off. Look at that beautiful crust. I do need, and this is again another reason why we use our spatula, whoops, is we need to just move the crust over on the paper because like I said, I did a really terrible job on commit. So, and as you can see, we have a hole in our crust right here, sadly, but that's okay. Because again, perfection is not required for delicious food. And good food needs no apologies. So we're not making any. Okay, so now that we have it flipped over, we are going to take our pot holders. We are going to bring it over to our prep area so that we can fill the ingredients in it, flip it, and finish the baking. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to get the toppings ready for our calzone. I should say the innards, because it's not really a pizza, it's a calzone. So what we've got here is we've got some Italian sausage and we've got some hamburger. Now you'll notice in the recipe that I did not add amounts to the meat. It's because it's however much you want to put in it. I mean, obviously don't go crazy because this is a pork rind crust calzone and it may not hold up as well if you overfill it as a dough one would, an actual flour dough. So we're going to turn our stove on to about a 7.5, and then we're just going to take our Italian sausage and we're going to make little gobs with it. Little gobs, roll them in your hand, boop, pop them in the pan. I'm going to do this. Okay, so our sausage is starting to brown, so we're just going to flip those over real quick here. I love the smell of Italian sausage, or sausage in general cooking. It's just such a nice smell, and I love to hear that sizzle. There's this one that just does not want to flip over. There we go. Okay. So yeah, just flip all your pieces of sausage over. Get them all nice and cooked. That way all the grease doesn't leach out into your calzone while it's cooking. Okay, so if you notice that your sausage is starting to stick to the pan, just add a tiny bit of water. You can also turn your heat down. I've actually reduced mine to about medium. And then you're just going to kind of shake the meaty Italian sausage balls around. And they'll get fully cooked. Like I said, you can add water to the pan to keep it from getting too hot, but it's a nice gentle way to cook your sausage. All right, now that we've got our sausage pieces all cooked and whatnot, we are going to put them in a bowl for when we get ready to assemble our calzone. Whoop, I had one try to escape. Can't have that. Okay, so now we're going to add our ground beef. Same way we did our sausage. We're just going to drop little ball pieces of it onto our skillet. Okay, so we've got all of our pieces of ground beef in here. We're going to do the same thing we did with our sausage, which is we're just going to take them. We're going to flip them over if I can make my hands work. There we go. Get them nice and browned. Okay, so now that we've got all our beef browned, we're going to turn our burner off. We're going to put it in a bowl so that we can use it to fill our calzone. Okay, so here we are at our station that we've assigned to fill the calzone. So we're going to start with our sauce. We're just going to spread that all over the calzone here. Now we're only filling half of it. We just happen to have about a halfway mark where a wrinkle in the parchment paper has created a kind of a mark. Now you don't want to get it fully to the edge of your calzone crust. You just want to kind of get it maybe half an inch. That way when you flip it over you can get a nice seal on it. Now I told you before that there was a hole in my crust. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the cheese that we're using to fill the filling, and I'm just going to take a little piece of it, just kind of give it a little press into that spot, because when this crust bakes, I'm hoping it's going to kind of, you know, plug the hole, if you will. Okay, so we're getting ready to throw this in the oven, and I've decided to take about a 1/4 cup of Parmesan, freshly grated, and just sprinkle it over the top because, hey, cheese, why not? So let me just sprinkle some of this. I'm not sure how much is going to stay on the calzone and how much is going to land on the paper, but you know, we're going to see what we can do here. So that looks pretty sexy. Most of it landed on the paper, but that's okay because we don't make no apologies for good food. So we're going to put this in the oven. Okay, and that's going to go in the oven for about 4 or 5 minutes, just to let the ingredients meld together and become delicious. Okay, so the timer went off for our calzone, and I turned the broiler on high after turning the oven off to just kind of hit it for that beautiful crispy top with the Parmesan. So we'll pull it out here. Ooh, that looks really good. Close the oven. And we have a wonderful, beautiful calzone. I'm going to take it off of the pizza stone. I'm going to slide it off. So I'm going to carefully grab the parchment paper. Now I will tell you, parchment paper gets very brittle when it gets hot. So be very careful not to tear your parchment paper and hurt yourself. I'm just going to slide this off of the pizza board. And you can see it's kind of wet because the sauce makes it wet, and because it's not a flour dough, it causes it doesn't absorb that moisture in. But I'm going to move my pizza stone over here, and I am going to turn this way, and I see what I mean about how easy that tears. I'm just going to take, and I'm actually going to let this calzone rest for just a moment or two, kind of let everything sink up, and then we're going to cut into it and we're going to enjoy it. Okay, so we've rested our calzone for 5 minutes or so, and we're just going to take our big old knife here. We're going to give it a slice into and see how she looks. Now you'll notice that there's a few slits on top. I did that to give it a little bit more heat inside the ingredients. Now we're just going to take and Well, we're just going to cut the paper because that works real good. How about we just take a spatula, guys? That probably would be better and less likely to tear the paper. Because I'd like you to be able to see the inside of this. So we're just going to kind of move around here. I'm not guaranteeing I'm doing it very well, but hey, there we are. Now I got my pizza stone, or no, actually, I got my stove dirty. And you can see all those beautiful ingredients inside. So we're going to enjoy this. And thank you for joining us for this bonus episode of the Lotus Cafe. And remember that good food needs no apologies. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye.